玩到什么好玩？快走啊！快走啊！你们快走啊！
Chongqing, China, a landslide. This is really, really bad, guys, because this is not just a few rocks coming down and pushing away one house or something like this. The reports that we're getting out of China is at least 10 to 12 apartment buildings, multi-story buildings buried by that landslide. And the authorities have declared a level 2 geological disaster emergency, and they have evacuated around 1,100 residents from the affected area. So over 10 to 12 residential apartment blocks in the Hanjia area. We know that 8 people definitely confirmed have been lost already, and 34 remain missing after this landslide that they think has been triggered by heavy rainfall, Chongqing in China. And the videos that I'm showing you, it's unbelievable what came down. And I'm showing you an image. These are some of these apartment blocks, and I've waited a little bit to report about this because now we've got aerial videos, we've got drone videos, we've got images from the rescue teams that I'm going to show you in this video. And the real cause is not directly known yet. And if many of you want to say, oh, is that the typhoons that have caused the flooding and the rainfall in China? I'll get to that because it's different. This is an absolute disaster, guys. 7:48 on Friday morning. So this is a time where people still could be in their houses, have not left for work. A message reached community officials in Pengshui in southwest China. Rocks were falling behind a row of residential buildings behind the Wujiang River. You see the river in many of the videos. Photographs were attached to the warning. So there was a warning. Nature gave a warning. So people noticed this. When I say rocks were falling, this is not the main landslide yet. By 8 o'clock, community workers were standing right beneath the cliff. Small stones were repeatedly rolling down that mountainside. And it's a very, very steep mountainside, as you can see. And they were striking the metal awnings that are attached to the buildings below. So that was making quite a scary noise. So the sound was loud enough to frighten people a lot. The people that were standing there looking up like, what's going to happen? So the workers immediately began running from building to building, climbing staircases, pounding on doors, saying, guys, get out, get out, get out. So these guys are heroes. We have to say that because they knew that what was coming, right? Their message was brutally simple. The mountain may collapse, get out now. Imagine you're in your bed sleeping and then you get that message. So by 9:08 a.m., while that evacuation was still underway, the warning unfortunately became a catastrophe. But imagine had these workers not been there waking up people and evacuate people. So what came down? An entire section of the cliff broke loose above Hanjia subdistrict in the Pengshui, Miao, and Tujia autonomous county. That's part of Chongqing municipality. And we already have some size estimate of how big that landslide was. Approximately 18,000 cubic meters. That's, if we convert that to cubic feet, that is massive. That is 636,000 cubic feet of rock and debris crashed, was racing, rolling towards the buildings below, completely wiping them away and burying them. So the collapsed section right now measured approximately 60 meters long, 30 meters high, and 10 meters thick. So we're talking about 197, almost 200 feet long, 100 feet high, and 33 feet thick. So there you see how deep in that mountain that cut was, how much material got loose actually. The largest individual block that came down contained around 3,000 cubic meters. That is 106 106,000 cubic feet of rock. And photographs from the scene show like a boulder, huge, appearing larger than a multi-story building. Isn't that crazy? This is insane. More than 10 residential buildings were buried, crushed, or severely damaged. 18 trapped people were located during the initial search, so that is really great. 10 were taken to the hospital, including people with serious and initially critical injuries. Officials later said the surviving patients had stable vital signs, so that's really, really good. But these numbers could have been even worse, right? More than 60 people inside the core collapse zone were moved before the mountain came down. So these heroes saved these 60 people. Across the wider danger area, there's more than 1,100 residents have now been evacuated. And the individual accounts reveal how little time remained. We have a community worker, his name is Peng Di. He was running up and down the buildings, warning every household that she could reach. So when residents gathered in the open area directly in front of the buildings, which is not the best thing to do, right? She realized that they were still too close to the cliff. So she began directing them toward the sides of that area, away from the expected path of the falling rock. And some residents hesitated because they wanted to collect possessions. This is some stupid reflex that we humans have. It's like, I gotta get my laptop, my handbag, my whatever. No, don't, just leave, right? Neighbors then prevented that, and they urged them to leave everything behind. So one 49-year-old resident, Ran Shifang, was still on the second floor when she heard shouting below. Basically, a water delivery worker was running downstairs, warned her that the mountain was about to collapse. So she said she grabbed a bag and ran. So don't even grab a bag, right? As she reached the street, she saw residents fleeing away from the cliff, running away. But Peng Di was moving in the opposite direction, back towards the danger, because other people were still inside. So she is really a hero. And Ran had only taken a few more steps when an enormous blast erupted behind her. Flying stones and the pressure wave from that. I mean, imagine that, knocked her to the ground and she lost consciousness. She later woke up in the hospital, but also Peng Di was hit by debris. Both were really, really lucky. She fell into a gap between, you have to imagine this, between rocks, and then she woke up surrounded by dust with only a small point of light visible ahead of her. So what a luck that they survived. Rescuers were eventually able to pull her out. And there's another young community worker, Gong Bao Dong, disappeared while helping evacuate residents and was unfortunately still listed as missing in the local account, and still is. We also have witness a description from a driver that was approaching the area, and he described that it sounded like an explosion. He saw people screaming and running into the street, so he abandoned his vehicle and fled in the opposite direction. He said his legs felt weak as he ran, and he believed that arriving only seconds earlier could have left him buried inside the collapse zone. Yeah, some seconds, sometimes fate is the decision, right? So this disaster, because many of you will ask, I know that, happened only days after Typhoon Bavi struck China. And that has created this obvious question. Did the rainfall, did Bavi cause this mountain slide to collapse? There's currently no confirmed direct connection, because Bavi made landfall in the Zhejiang province on China's eastern coast and then weakened while it was moving northwest into the Anhui province. So basically the main wind and the rainfall from Bavi, the impacts were concentrated across eastern and northeastern China. So Peng Shui is much farther west from the Bavi impact in southeastern Chongqing. So It was definitely outside Bavi's reported direct track. We can say that. And no Chinese government agency has officially attributed the Peng Shui collapse to the typhoon. They actually say they still need to investigate the reason for this mountain collapse. So we would not say that this is a Bavi-caused landslide. That would definitely go beyond the available evidence. But that does not mean that weather played no role. The event, many say the event was rain triggered, but still, again, Chinese authorities continue to investigate the exact cause, and that distinction, in my opinion, is important because, of course, rainfall, we know that can initiate the movement in a slope that is already fractured or close to failure. If we have water that enters the rock and the saturated soil, it can definitely change the groundwater pressure in that mountainside and then can reduce the strength that is holding the material together and in place on that hillside. But rainfall, guys, is only the one possible factor. There's a river down there. This is a valley. So we could have river erosion. We could have existing fractures that have already been there, weathering, groundwater changes, and other local conditions that can act basically individual together to cause something like this, right? There's also an interesting major timing detail that I would like to point out to you. A weather station in Peng Shui recorded 19.2 centimeters, so almost 8 inches of rain from Friday night into Saturday morning. So that enormous rainfall occurred after the main collapse at 9:08 Friday morning. So that didn't cause the landslide, but this is causing problems right now. This is now making the rescue far more dangerous. So now investigators need to establish how much rain has entered the slope before the collapse and how long had the cliff basically been weakening and what was the weather the morning when the failure was produced. Was it by one trigger or by several conditions combining? Before the disaster, Chongqing had also experienced intense summer heat. So local officials said the cliff occupied very steep terrain and that the dangerous rock mass was difficult to detect before it failed. So they described the collapse as highly sudden and difficult to predict. So what does extreme heat do to the exposed rock? It may have expanded, actually, the exposed rock and have worsened existing fractures that were already there in the mountain, and then rain can penetrate some of these openings. So experts have not yet established which process then delivered the final push. Definitely gravity in some case, right? So more than 800 rescuers have been deployed right now around the disaster zone. You see it in the images. Heavy equipment, drones, and specialist monitoring systems are being used to inspect the debris and of course also watch the remaining cliff there. Water, electricity, gas have been shut off within approximately 1 kilometer, almost a mile of the collapse, so that they can reduce the risk of fires, to be electrocuted or damaged pipelines during the search. But the largest rocks that we see there, they create an extraordinary problem. Rescuers can search the exposed areas beside them, but some of the missing may be unfortunately trapped beneath blocks that are weighing thousands of tons. So you cannot just simply lift these boulders, and you don't want to blast them either. So teams are now, and this is interesting what they're planning to do, they're now expected to drill holes into the rock and use explosive to break sections of it apart, but only after surrounding areas have been searched and engineers decide the operation can proceed without causing another collapse, right? Using a blast on this mountainside, there's way more mountain behind more buildings, right? So the rain definitely that is happening there is slowing inspections, it's soaking the debris, and it's increasing the possibility that rocks could shift while the rescuers are working beneath them to find people. This is a big, big problem. And again, the cliff above is active. It remains active. So there's geologists down there that are now inspecting the site. And the problem is they found additional unstable rock masses along the top and both sides, left and right, of the collapse scar. So more buildings may be at risk. And officials are also warning that the intense rainfall could cause more rocks to break away. But they also warned about the opposite weather extreme, right? Prolonged clear and intensely hot conditions could place additional stress on other fractured cliff areas. So the rescue teams, therefore, unfortunately, they have to work between two hazards right now. Beneath them are collapsed buildings and unstable boulders, but above them is a cliff that may not have finished yet moving, meaning coming down on them. So China activated, I said it, level 2 national emergency response for geological disasters and sent national rescue specialists to Pengshui. The National Development and Reform Commission allocated 30 million yuan, that's 4.4 million US dollars, to restore the damaged infrastructure and public services. So also what they're sending out there, thousands of emergency supplies, including tents, folding beds, and household kits, have also been sent to support the displaced residents. But the most urgent operation, in my opinion, remains concentrated beneath these enormous rocks. I will keep you updated about this, guys. So much is going on. We just had a magnitude 7.3 earthquake in Mexico that was shaking parts of Mexico, Guatemala, and El Salvador. So this is crazy. Watch it here in the end screen, but also flooding in Texas, unprecedented historical flooding probably. The governor was using unusual words to describe it. If you want to see what's happening there, click one of these videos in the end screen. Stay safe, guys. I see you there. Bye-bye.